Because Rogal Dorn and Jaghatai Khan were confirmed dead by Games Workshop, not just once recently, but twice. They're literally doubling down on this, and while I did predict just this, the off-screen death of Primarchs confirmed, it's both happening much earlier on in 11th edition than I anticipated, and just pissing me off to my core. Yes, I'm completely torqued on one level while I am vindicated on another. The death of family members is always complicated like that. So, during the live stream for the big summer reveal, Games Workshop put out a poll asking which Primarch would win in a fight. Rabute Guilliman, Rogal Dorn, Jaghatai Khan, or Sanguinius? And their answer was pure rage bait. Guilliman, because all the rest are already dead. Now this follows on the heels of a much worse statement that was even more rage-inducing when they were recently asked during an event surrounding the launch of 11th edition, specifically, which loyalist Primarch will be the next to return to Warhammer 40K? And the answer was not something that sat too well with many of us because it was none. How can they return? They're all dead, or something to that effect. And I was shocked, but now, this new reveal that they're saying both Dorn and the Khan are dead is sending ripples throughout the community. And many a fan of the Imperial Fists and White Scars are lamenting, and I'm sure that many tears are being shed and much denial is being had. I honestly don't even want to know what Chapter Master Valrock is saying about it, because honestly, if I see him cry, then I might cry too, and I am trying to hold it together. Like, I bet if we hooked him up to a polygraph, it would show that he honestly believes Rogal Dorn is his gene father, and who are we to disbelieve or question that? As a community, we are experiencing the stages of grief together, and I'm sure there is much denial, anger, bargaining, etc., but I doubt any of us has come to accept this yet. So, why is this so bad though? Well, I don't think it's a fake out like some people are saying. I think they are indeed serious. It seems that a lot of folks appreciate the older lore of Rogal Dorn's death and encasement of his skeleton in amber than they do the newer retconned lore where the Imperial Fists recovered his hand and nothing else. Here's what I can say, as a guy that loves many legions and chapters and isn't necessarily beholden to one. Okay, I have like 12 armies at this point, I'm all over the place, but I have a very special place in my heart for Sanguinius, and the epic end he met is part of what makes him so awesome. We will now be able to say the same for the Khan and the Praetorian when we finally get the stories of their ultimate fates. It's merely a bobber of respect and remembrance floating on an ocean of grimdarkness, but it is something. Conrad Kurz had a vision of Rogal Dorn's death, and while not all of his visions came to pass, one thing Kurz was a liar. He would have told the truth of the vision as he understood it, not some Alfarius-like deception or some convoluted explanation that is confusing. Kurz was pretty straightforward despite his problems and his mental state. But what Kurz saw was Dorn going down fighting, going out like a total boss. He died a warrior's death. And that is really all that someone like him, someone that was an aspect of the Emperor incarnate, an aspect of war itself made flesh, could wish for. I think of Rogal Dorn as a man who would rather die on his feet than live on his knees. So though it does make me extremely sad that he may be gone, he's a guy we could put right up there with Sanguinius, and may thus be an Imperial Saint at some point. I guess there really isn't anything we could really wish more for Dorn than for him to die fighting. Storm's teeth in hand, tearing into enemies, not even noticing he's overwhelmed, mortally wounded because he's just so focused on fighting. I could see a blaze of glory moment like that for Rogal Dorn, and it would be something to give us closure, rather than the festering wound that is the speculation we currently have. Jaghatai Khan, on the other hand, was already killed and resurrected by the power of the Emperor and came back completely messed up on the edge of death. He was all but a corpse. Mostly dead, in the most westly from the Princess Bride sort of way. He walked the places in the warp where the dead go, and he searched for Horus Lupercal and found no trace of his brother in the afterlife. But the Emperor brought him back to the Materium. He's already died once, and maybe he's been turned into a couch or a lamp or both in Kamara. but I would still not count out the Khan, even if he is dead. And not just because he's been dead before, but because the Drukhari are masters of cloning and gene tech. Sure, they might have killed the Khan, but maybe there's some Archon somewhere of some twisted cabal, maybe even Asdrubal Vecht himself, that clones a dozen Jagatais a day and fights them in gladiatorial fights to the death against horrors we cannot even imagine. I'm just saying, with both the Khan and with Dorn, there's some sort of way out of this. But here's where I want to dive into something deeper and something darker. There's the possibility that, sure, they're dead, but that doesn't mean they're inactive. The Emperor of Mankind is a space lich on a galactic scale, apparently. A Nagash type of figure that we've seen resurrect Guilliman from death, and when he was still alive before he faced Horus Lupercal, he resurrected the Khan as well. He's basically the greatest necromancer in all of Warhammer, any setting. Death may not be an impediment for his sons, but simply a way to find their way back to their father. I mean, the miracles the Emperor has been pulling off lately are showing that he is indeed a god, and there's a lot of speculation that Rogal Dorn is the King in Yellow. And while I'm not one of the people who buys into this theory absolutely wholeheartedly, I do really see the possibility. But we must keep in mind what the King in Yellow is and what inspiration has been taken in creating this character. He's a nightmare, a delusion, a shared reality that may or may not exist. A path to damnation that your feet may touch but your eyes may never really see. Created way back in the mid-1800s by Ambrose Bierce, the character was then used by other writers such as Robert W. Chambers, before finding its way into H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, where it was associated with the Great Old One Hastur. This tradition was carried on by August Derlath among other writers, but now finds itself in the writing of Dan Abnett. The setting as well, not just the King in Yellow, but the City of Dust, the Inevitable City, the Impossible City, is Carcosa. If you are steeped in King in Yellow lore, you'll recognize this instantly. So if Dorn is the King in Yellow, he's probably not the Dorn we remember. He'd be the lord of a pocket dimension that was its own sort of hell, fighting a new war against an unstoppable, innumerable foe. And there's precedent that he could even be a cosmic horror unto himself, like his space lich god corpse of a father, on the Golden Throne. We've seen what Corvus Corax became. What monster lurks within Rogal Dorn? And that brings me full circle back to the first announcement the Games Workshop made that the loyalist Primarchs were indeed all deceased except for Guilliman and the Lion. How does that apply to Corvus Corax? He was last seen tearing Lorgar a few new holes in his Stormcrow aspect that is basically a warped demigod super demon prince of the God Emperor of Mankind. Did Lorgar mortally wound him somehow? And more importantly, why does this apply at all to Vulcan? He's dead. Okay, so what else is new? He shakes that off all the time. The flame of Prometheus himself cannot be extinguished. I think that is where this is all leading. I think we're going to see Vulcan make an appearance soon, especially since Armageddon is the main focus so far in 11th edition Warhammer 40K on the tabletop. There are so many people that say they hate that Games Workshop brought Primarchs into Warhammer 40K at all. I was sort of one of them, though I did realize that back in the day, we had the Demon Primarchs that represented the 4 powers in the epic 40K game, but they were small in scale. I still like the Grim Reaper Mortarion way better than the Moth Demon, but he's still cool. But yeah, a lot of people thought the Loyalist Primarchs at least didn't belong in the setting, and the traitors and demons should stay in the lore but not in the game, etc. But Games Workshop broke spades on that so long ago that there's no going back on that. Primarch Hammer 40K is here, and it's been here to stay for a long time. But that doesn't mean that all the Loyalists will return, or that they should. They are, after all, at the end of the day, warriors, and we're all stubborn and headstrong. They all thought they were right, and they all butted heads because each one was a mini-emperor. So noted the Custodes Tribune Diocletian Koros. It makes sense that we lost some of them. And which one is your favorite or not isn't going to have much bearing on if they are alive or dead. It may just be the best thing for Warhammer 40K to have some of these guys 100% confirmed killed off. Alfarius suggested that the Khan and Rogal were dead when he was being tortured to death by the Inquisition itself. And whether or not we believe that was actually Alfarius, he sure believed it, and seemed to have a lot of knowledge that nobody else did, or even would know if they weren't Alfarius. And as a glimmer of hope, he admitted to having been killed off at least 3 separate times already, though what can you really believe when you get the information through torture? Now, last I want to talk about Layman Russ really quick. His original lore, his speech he gave his sons when he departed from the Space Wolves, suggested that he was mortally wounded and going off into the warp to die. But the lines about coming back to fight the final battle, no matter what laws govern the living and the dead, they were in the original speech as well. Layman Russ plans on returning to us no matter what. Even if he has to walk his way back from death itself to do it, he's got an ambitious mind, but he's so stubborn he could literally do just that. So there is precedent set that just because a Primarch might be dead, doesn't mean he's not returning to the setting. The loyalist Primarchs being scattered, missing, gone, with fates up in the air, that's interesting, but it gets old. Such epic mythical figures, such Herculean archetypes, the very sons of the Emperor, deserve to have their tales told and their deeds, as well as their ultimate fates, known to the historiators and remembrancers in perpetuity. The sagas of the sons of the Emperor must be known and told, for they are part of the legend of the Imperium. Sure, the Imperium of Man has lost its finest warriors, each one a completely unique figure of legend. But they were always warriors, first and foremost. And the price of war is death. It always has been, and it always will be. The Emperor knew this when he created the Primarchs to command his legions, and be his ambassadors and generals, take back the stars. He knew that some would die in the course of their duties, and none of the Primarchs would have it any other way. Not even the very best among them, such as Rogal Dorn and Corvus Corax. Now there's one question that remains that we need to talk about, and we need to look at. Did becoming, or rather ascending to, his demon form, technically kill Corvus Corax? Is he now only a warp demon? It's often said that the demon Primarchs are no longer truly alive. That's been reiterated time and time again, and ostensibly is true. Or has someone finally slain the demon storm of crows that the 19th Primarch became? And if so, who has that kind of power? So to put my final thoughts on all this, I do not think Games Workshop is trolling all of us. I think they are being extraordinarily transparent and quite sincere. But this is Warhammer 40K, and when has being dead ever stopped anyone? All the best people are dead. It's what everyone's doing now, from Big E to the Silent King. Being a space lich is all the rage these days. The kids can't stop talking about it. It's taking over like hula hoops and Bob Seger records. Yes, that was a basketball reference, because we can't end this on a total bummer of a note. Requiescat in pace, my brothers. Say hi to Omegon for me.